I am first generation immigrant, and the American dream, as has always been, or at least how I've always interpreted it, is the ability to come in, work hard, and accomplish things. Nowhere in that American dream does it say, oh, I'll just use this because I am, but oh, you're Asian, you get an extra. You get an extra little bump here just because, that's just not how that's one of the most infuriating things of identity politics is, in some ways, I hate throwing the term around, but in some ways, I think identity politics are as racist as anything, in recent American history, where the idea that, oh, someone is not white, so therefore, they deserve more. That's not it. That's not what America was built on or stands for. It's just mind-boggling that's a thing. But yeah, that came out Monday, and I was really impressed with it. And it's always a good sign when places like CNN are just freaking out over this. That's usually a pretty good sign that, hey, maybe this is a good thing. And yeah, just reading that, reading about just what the doctrine, the commission said, I was impressed. Anyone who's watched this show knows that I am not by any stretch like a hardcore Trump supporter. I've supported a lot of what he did, but this was, I thought, very well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. I guess my one question would be, what happens now to the 1776, I guess, commission, you said, or project?
Yeah,
commission. Yeah. So how will it affect going forward, right, for the next 4 years? Will that last, do you think?
No, because, I can't remember what exactly Biden was using this in reference to, but, Biden's already come out and said, his small business plans, he wants,
Build back better?
Yeah, his economic plans are going to be largely based
on
in race.
Yeah, race
social
and
justice,
gender and that stuff.
as opposed to, economics.
Yeah. But yeah, I do, that is certainly a concern. And actually I'm glad you brought that up, Joe, because what I wanted to posit to you guys was, assuming Biden does kind of set all this back, because at the point we're at currently in American history, do you think we can move forward from that, or is this kind of just plunging into endless identity politics?
I think we can move, hypothetically speaking anyway, I think we can move forward from it. And one of the reasons that I have hope for that is actually a story that I believe it was Michael Austin who wrote it. I'd have to go back and look to be sure. But it was about polling that was done of parents of school-age children and school board members. Mm-hmm. Was that Michael?
That was Michael.
Okay.
Yeah. Who I trained.
I recall training him personally myself, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But that polling indicated that parents and school board members, which I thought was very interesting, the school board members piece in particular, both groups favored education and educational goals that are far more in line with the 1776 Commission's report than any of the ridiculous 1619 stuff. The 1619 name comes from the idea that America was really founded in 1619, not 1776, because in 1619 the first slaves were brought to America, and that is really the defining moment in American history, the creation of America, which is utter garbage. Utter garbage. The fact that most parents and school board members haven't bought into that utter garbage, I found very hopeful.
Yeah.
The issue is, and partly because this is partly my bias as a former educator, I believe so much of this begins with education. I think education is so foundational to cultural change. If parents and school board members will become active at the local level and fight this stuff, fight against this sort of revisionist garbage from 1619, promulgate traditional history education of this country so that people really can understand what America is, how it's different, American exceptionalism, all of those kinds of things as a cultural identity, if I can call it that, a national identity. If people will go out and promote the stuff that they say they believe, and if they'll do it at the local level, which is where they can actually make a difference, then I have a lot of hope that that the country can move forward from this asinine American, identity politics stuff, which really began. I agree with you, Brian. The end of the Bush administration and moving into Obama was really kind of where it got its wings. It really has its roots in political correctness, and some cultural, literary theories, literary criticism theories that originated in the 60s and 70s about power and those kinds of things. So it's been, sort of bubbling around for a few decades now. But I, based on the information from the polling that Michael wrote about, it's clear to me that it hasn't completely taken hold in the minds of parents and school board members. It may be much more strongly held beliefs in the minds of those students from those educational systems. But I don't think it's too late to turn that around. Joe, what do you think?
Two
about
quick
that?
points on that.
Yeah.
I think one, what you said about school boards just underscores the importance of how local elections and stuff like that is far more important. It affects you, I won't say far more important. It affects you on a individual level far more than a presidential election, a Senate election, even a gubernatorial election. School board elections affect your day-to-day life. City council elections, stuff like that. That is where this change gets made, at the local level, not at the federal
zoning
level.
Boards. I'm always
Exactly.
talking about zoning
We should
boards.
abolish most zoning boards. I hope that's not a ridiculous thing to say, but zoning is stupid and hurts businesses.
And people, generally
And
speaking.
people,
You're right.
yeah.
But to the degree that you're going to have an election for a zoning board,
Sure. You vote for the people who want to get rid of the zoning board.
you can have influence over those
Right.
people
Right.
much more than I can write 15 letters a day to Joe
Yeah.
Biden. He doesn't care. Doesn't even read them. Zoning board members live where I live. They'll
Yeah,
listen
exactly.
to me. They may not agree with me,
Exactly.
but they'll listen.
Yeah. And the second thing on that is, I think that you have to make sure the left wants this to be kind of a one side or the other side thing. They want they don't want this issue with what we're teaching in classrooms and history to have any nuance. They want to say either you teach that America was built on slavery and racism and all these horrible things, or you teach that slavery and racism was no big deal and that America has always been the best nation for everyone. Of course, neither of those things are true.
Right.
The truth is that America has always been built on great ideals that we've never lived up to.
Exactly.
So
Just like
the
every
truth,
individual American life
of course,
is built on
of
great
course. So
ideals.
the
that we
truth
don't live
that
up
they don't want you to think of is that, of course, you're going to teach about racism. You're going to teach about slavery because those things are blots. They're stains on our history, our country.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're going to say, look, this didn't define us. We overcame it, and we are still reaching for the ideals of the country that we haven't gotten there yet, but we're still reaching for them. The same thing that, the people in the Constitution and the Declaration wrote back then, that wasn't about slavery. That wasn't about racism. That was about reaching for something better. And the men who wrote that weren't that good. They
were slaveholders.
They were slaveholders
many
too.
of them, yeah.
And we're not erasing that. We're just saying, look, they wanted something better, and they weren't good, but eventually, we've
They're
made
about
progress.
as good as I am. They're
Yeah,
about as
and the
good as
left
anyone
doesn't
else.
want you to think of that. They want it to be just this one side or the other side. So it's really stupid.
That's such a good point, Joe. And it's not, we got him fired up a little bit. Did you see that? That was good. But that is such a good point. There are we like, and by we I mean people,
Americans, everyone.
Yeah, we like simple stories,
Black and white.
Yeah, with the good guy and the bad guy, and the good guy is good in everything he does, and the bad guy is just heinous and evil in every way. And there's nobody like that. I mean, there are. A writer that I used to read a lot used to say his example of that was, Hitler liked dogs. And it's Hitler was about as evil as you get, but there was at least this one little thing, he actually liked dogs. He was nice to them. He, whatever. I'm not defending Hitler. I don't want to get email about this. The point is that nobody is one thing. Everybody has multiple facets to them. Thomas Jefferson was brilliant and owned slaves. George Washington was a brilliant, courageous, gracious by all accounts man who owned slaves. I mean that
Ben Franklin was a genius inventor who was a womanizer. and
yeah, exactly.
Terrible.
So Jefferson a womanizer as well. Martin Luther King was, inarguably a great figure in the American landscape and an adulterer. That is.
You can be arguably one of the most significant figures of the past 70 years and also have cheated on your wife and be an adulterer. It's possible to do both things. God uses everyone.
That's exactly right, Joe.
I just want to point out that all these flawed great men, not a single one you mentioned was Asian. So clearly, Asians are flawless.
I'm not sure that logically follows, but it's worth noting, I guess.